Anirodhanamanupadamanuchedamashashvatam Anekarthamananarthamanagamamamirgamam Yah pratitya samutpadam prapanchopashamam shivam Deshayama sasambuddhastam vandevadatam varam Nasvato na viparato nadvabhyam napyahetuta Utpanna jatu vidyante bhava vachanake chana. Let us chant together 21 times the mantra of Buddha, which is Om Mune Mune Maha Munaye Swaha. 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 So welcome to this class on the Buddha's Dharmapada. This will be a very serious class because the Buddha's teaching is quite serious. Most of you who join our other classes, such as the Sanskrit class, will know that I am always joking and that we all have a good laugh once in a while. And perhaps, if the context allows it, we will do the same in this class. But only minimally. Only a little laughter is allowed. Only just a tiny bit. Because the teaching of the Buddha is not about how to have a good laugh or how to have a good joke over tea time with some British or Scottish shortbread biscuits. The Buddha's teaching is about liberation, freedom from suffering. Before we can begin this amazing teaching on the Dharmapada, the word on Dharma, I would like to go with you on a journey to ancient India, on the border between what is now known as Nepal and Bihar, a state in current-day India, there was a beautiful little city known as Kapila Vastu. It still exists. Those of you who are eager to travel and who do not mind COVID-19, I would advise you one day to go to Kapila Vastu and also to Lumbini, which is quite close by, to experience the places in which the Buddha was born and lived during the first 29 years of his life. If you'd come with me on a journey, it is a slightly mountainous region, not unlike Switzerland, not unlike the foothills of the Himalayas. Why? Because it is the foothills of the Himalayas. And there lived a beautiful queen. She is said to be the most beautiful of all queens. Her name was Maya Devi. Maya means magic, but it can also mean illusion. Devi means goddess. Her name was thus the goddess Maya, the goddess illusion, or the goddess magic, the magical goddess. And she was married to a king whose name was Shuddhodana, which literally means he whose water is pure. He who gives pure water, something pristine to you to drink. Unlike the water in London, which is quite questionable that the government gives you such water. We still have that kind of water in Switzerland because our water comes directly from the mountains. Similarly, the water in Kapila Vastu came directly from the Himalayan glaciers. And thus, the Buddha's father was called Shuddhodana, he whose water is pure. They desired a child. They were highly spiritual, doing all the sacred Vedic rituals to connect with the deities of nature, such as Indra, the king of the deities, who holds the Vajra, the thunderbolt of lightning. Other deities, such as Prithvi or Bhumi, the goddess of the earth. And they pleased all these deities with wonderful offerings of jewels, precious and semi-precious jewels. They pleased the Nagas. These are serpent-like, snake-like beings who live in waters, who live beneath trees and in the earth, offering to them precious jewels, milk, and all kinds of divine offerings. They pleased Agni, the deity of fire by calling innumerable Brahmins, priests, to their palace and having the most wonderful fire ceremonies conducted, where they would offer the most precious substances, wonderfully smelling herbs, grains, rice, into the sacred fire. And the fire would burn them up, and divine smell and fragrance would rise up to the skies. And during all these ceremonies, their prayer was just one: may we obtain a child. And then one day, a few months later, Queen Maya Devi had a dream at night. She dreamt that a white elephant, pure white, white like cream, with 6 tusks, not 2, but 6 tusks, entered her womb. And then her body was filled with radiance. She woke up, and just as she was waking up from her dream, she felt that her whole being was filled with light. That around her, everything was more vivid. The colors were more colorful. Her heart was filled with a warmth, a joy, a bliss even. So she called the court astrologer and interpreter of dreams and described to him her dream. And he told her, this dream has 2 meanings, or rather, it can be interpreted in 2 ways. Either you will give birth to a world reigning king, someone who will conquer the entire earth, who will reign over all the worlds, over all the regions of the earth. Or you will give birth to one who will achieve enlightenment, the ultimate enlightenment. Shuddhodana, the king, heard this. And as it is common for kings to enjoy ruling over others, he thought, oh dear, let us hope it is the first. We don't want all these enlightened people. They just ruin our kingdoms. I would love my son to be an emperor. Some other people can become enlightened. There's enough of them already. We don't need one more. And in his heart, he took the decision, I'm going to make sure that this chap won't go on the spiritual path once he is born. 9 months later, as it is common in that region of India, Queen Maya Devi was on the way to her parents' house in the 9th month of pregnancy, when she's just about to give birth. She wanted to be with her mother, not with that husband of hers who doesn't have a clue. She wanted to be with her mother. So, along with her attendants, her maids and servants, she was on the way. And near Lumbini, suddenly she felt that the child was going to be born quite soon. And those among you who are ladies who have given birth to a child, you will know why she knew, isn't it? The pains usually tell you, now it's time. So Queen Maya Devi also felt that for just a moment, and then reclined beneath a tree. And her attendants placed a silk cloth around her like a little tent, so that other travelers could not see what was going on. But mysteriously, Queen Maya no longer felt any pain. And this was not because a doctor injected something into her back. It was because the child in her womb was a divine child who did not wish to cause pain even to his mother at the time of birth. Such was that child's compassion, never wishing to cause pain to anyone. He did not wish to enter this world by causing pain to his mother. And thus the legend goes that she had an utterly pain-free birth. And when he was born, mysteriously, a gush of wind came, and from the trees above them, flower petals descended upon the newborn baby. And the legend goes, which is a little hard to believe for those who do not experience spiritual things, but it is very easy for those to understand who do experience spiritual things. The legend goes that a voice suddenly from the emptiness appeared and spoke blessings upon the child. The voice said, "Born is the completely enlightened one. Born is the one who shall conquer the world." The Sanskrit word for completely enlightened is Sambuddha. And the word for the one who will conquer the world is Jina. So those among you who know the Jaina tradition, it is derived from the word Jina. At the time of the Buddha's birth, legend has it that the gods blessed him and said, "Born is the Sambuddha. Born is the Jinnah, the one who will conquer the world." The name that was given to this little boy was Siddhartha, which means the one whose goal is accomplished, the one who achieves his goal. And his father made sure that he was not exposed to spirituality. He hid spiritual books from him. He hid deities, ceremonies, all that stuff that might lead someone into a spiritual life. All he gave him was an endless supply of toys, like our son Amar. He sometimes reminds me of that little Siddhartha, an endless supply of toys. Anybody who visits us brings him not one toy, but 3. And now please consider how many people visit us. So many people come, and everyone has to give him not 1, but 3 gifts. How many cars do you think Amar has? I really once counted them with him, and you will be shocked to the core of your heart. Amar has more than 750 toy cars. It's really true. And slowly, now that he is turning 7, we are giving them away to those who need them more than Amar does. But you know, Amar has a wonderful argument against this suggestion. He says, "Papa, I don't need them anymore now, but I'll need them in my next life, so we should keep them." What an argument is that? He came up with this himself. So not unlike Amar, the historical Siddhartha, whose surname was Gautama, had an endless supply of toys, an endless supply of exciting adventures. In the palace gardens, which were huge, he and his cousins played to their heart's content. And of course, Siddhartha later had an excellent education. The texts tell us he was highly proficient in all the sciences, including, in fact, the Vedas. But his father made sure that he would be kept away from all that spiritual stuff. Let him study the Vedas, but the people who explain them should explain only the scientific side of it, not all that spiritual stuff. You see, quite a clever father, wasn't it? But by nature, this boy was so compassionate. He was so gentle that one day there is a legend that his cousin Devadatta was in the grounds of the palace and was playing with a bow and arrow, as children do. I did the same. So does our dear Himaji's daughter. Archery is lovely for children. And Devadatta took his bow and arrow and shot at a goose. Or a swan, but it was probably a goose. Shot at a goose. And then the goose was injured. The little Siddhartha ran up to the goose and took the goose in his arms and cried, filled with compassion for this little creature. And he ran back to the palace and called the palace doctor, who assured him that it was just an injury, that the arrow hadn't killed the goose, but the goose would have to recover. In the meantime, Devadatta, his cousin, said, "That's my goose. I shot the goose, so it belongs to me." And Siddhartha says, "No, I protected the goose from dying. It belongs to me." Devadatta got extremely angry and threw a tantrum in the palace. His shouting was so loud that even King Shuddhodana heard it and called the two boys to the court. In front of all the ministers, he told the boys, "What is your quarrel? Tell us, and we will solve it for you." Devadatta says, "I shot this goose. That's why we captured it, and Siddhartha took it away from me." Siddhartha said, "I protected the goose from him, and because of me, it is now going to live. And once it can fly again, I will let it go." Then King Shuddhodana told his chief justice, his main judge, "You must decide between these two lads who is right." And the chief justice consulted the ancient Vedic scriptures and found a passage therein which stated, "A creature belongs to the one who protects it, not to the one who tries to kill it." And thus Siddhartha became the owner of this hamsa. Hamsa means goose. And once the goose, the hamsa, was healed, Siddhartha went out on the palace grounds and released it into the sky. My dearly beloved friends, this is one of those stories that also have a subtle inner meaning. Do you know that the word hamsa, goose, is a secret code word for the word soul, Atma? That is why we say, Soham Hamsa. I am that. That is me. In reference to ultimate consciousness. Hamsa is a synonym of Atma, Paramatma. Which is why in the much later monastic tradition of Shankaracharya, the main meditation formula goes thus. Soham hamsah, paramahamsah, paramatma, chinmayoham, satchidananda, svarupoham, soham hamsah. Om. I am the soul, the supreme consciousness, whose nature is presence, consciousness, bliss. I am Hamsa. I am the swan or the goose of reality. My dearly beloved, what does the story mean? The goose was injured, was suffering. The Buddha, Siddhartha, saved it, healed its injuries, and then let it fly into the sky, releasing it from suffering. My dearly beloved, you are that Hamsa, that swan. I am that Hamsa, that swan or goose. And it is no coincidence that all the sages of India till this day call themselves Paramahamsa as a title. Paramahansa Yogananda, isn't it? Paramahansa Omkarananda, Paramahansa Shivananda, and so on and so forth. Paramahansa means the supreme swan or goose and refers to that ultimate feeling or state of freedom when our soul is healed from suffering and we can ascend into the sky of freedom. An experience which is very real. Our soul or consciousness is in the heart, and we rise upward into the sky of freedom through this exit point here in yoga. Like this. Pa. You just exit like that. And then we feel that there is real freedom available right now. Now, little Siddhartha grew older, more and more educated, living a luxurious life. He lived the life that our dearly beloved Jamin and Milan would like to have. He had the equivalent of an ancient Maserati, and not only a Maserati, also a Ferrari and a Porsche. Plus, he even had a Bentley. But the ancient equivalent of it, which is the best horses, the fastest horses, the best chariots, covered in gold and jewels. You see? It is quite incredible that up until the age of 29, not unlike Jamin and Milan, in fact, Prince Siddhartha did not realize that life is not just a party. In Soho, in London, where you gel your hair so that you see every little hair, and you wear Hugo Boss shirts and Louis Vuitton belts for men, and you order expensive mocktails, or worse, cocktails, smoking shisha or other things, I don't know. It is quite surprising that Prince Siddhartha lived the Soho way of life until about 29. Not unlike some modern youth in the United Kingdom, without ever realizing that there are terrible diseases in the world, that there is terrible old age in the world, and that people, in fact, are going to die one day. In ancient India, people had children as early as 16. So it is easily imaginable that Siddhartha's parents were only something like 45 by the time he was 28, 29. And at the age of 45, you do not yet realize that your parents are going to die one day. Do you see this? Therefore, we cannot blame him that he didn't realize life was not just a party at Soho's clubs, or Croydon for that matter. When I came to the United Kingdom the last time, Jamin and Millen shockingly took me to a Turkish shisha lounge to talk about meditation. It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. The lounge was called Atesh, which means fire. And I happen to know this because in ancient Persian, Atesh means fire. And the Turkish language has adopted a lot of vocabulary from Persian. So we enter into this lounge. Our beloved friend Adityaji was also there. And I recall the look on Adityaji's face, because rightfully so, Adityaji is very critical. So I saw the look on his face, and the look said it all. Where in all the worlds have we landed up? And we had one lady with us as well, one of our meditation students, and the look on her face was just priceless. It was just priceless. Because she had her small son along, an 8-year-old. So these two fellows take us to this shisha lounge. And we sit there, and I'm supposed to talk about meditation. But the smell of the water pipes was so intoxicating that I was no longer sure, am I enlightened already? Am I dreaming? You know, this shisha effect is sort of, it makes you a little hazy and daisy. But fortunately, it had the same effect on the others. So I didn't even need to talk about meditation. The shisha lounge had all the effect that a meditation needs. So you see, Siddhartha lived that kind of life in its ancient equivalent. Fortunately, Jamin and Millen ordered only mocktails for us and not cocktails. So then, one day, and I shall speed this up now, the Buddha, Siddhartha, goes out with his charioteer far into the city, into that part of the city where you see old people, where you see diseased people. And he's shocked. This is the reality of the world? What? But in our palace, we don't see all this. And his charioteer tells him, Siddhartha, this is reality. Everyone's going to die. Everyone's going to get ill. Everyone's going to get terrible illnesses. And everyone is going to leave this world sooner or later. And Siddhartha is shocked. And he gets into depression. And then his charioteer takes him out one more time. And Siddhartha sees a monk sitting under a tree in an orange dress, a dress of renunciation, the dress of what is called a sannyasi, a renunciant. And Siddhartha says, why is he so peaceful? Why does he look so fine? Why does he look like he's in bliss? And the charioteer says, that's because this guy is out of this world. This guy has left the world of luxury. This guy has left the world of pleasures. This guy has renounced the world. And he lives in the outskirts of the city in the forest, and all he does is meditates. And in the depth of his meditation, this guy experiences a bliss of samadhi, of deep, 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 deep states of meditation where you don't need outer things to be happy. That's why this guy looks so blissful. And Siddhartha says, oh my God, oh my goodness, my parents have been fooling me. That's what I want too. And you know what he does, our little Siddhartha? He's no longer little now, he's 29. You know what he does? He escapes from the palace at night. The charioteer takes him to the forest. Siddhartha removes all his jewels, gives them to the charioteer and says, give them away to the poor. Siddhartha removes all his clothes. He removes all his hair. And you know what? He only has a loincloth left. And you know what he says? I don't even need this. And he even removes the loincloth. He really did that. But in the pictures and paintings, of course, they show him with the loincloth because it looks nicer, obviously. You don't want to see Buddha painted as a naked chap, right? But he even gives that away and he says, you know what? I will be in the forest now. And I will meditate so long till I attain enlightenment, till I attain the absolute samadhi, which I will never lose. And then I will find out the truth of suffering and illness and death. And then I will go and teach the people about it, if I find the truth about it. If I manage to realize the truth, I will do it only for the benefit of others, and I will go out and I will help them. I will teach the others what the truth is. If I reach it myself, if I achieve the ultimate samadhi, I will go out and teach it. If I don't achieve it, I will remain here in the forest eating only fruits and drinking only water as a vegan. And I won't even pluck the fruits because that hurts the tree. I'll only eat fruits that have fallen down. And I will only drink water that I have ensured contains no little animals. And I will meditate and meditate and meditate and meditate and meditate. And I could go on saying meditate forever. I will meditate and meditate for so long till I know the truth of truths. The truth that liberates beings from suffering. All right? And after 6 years of meditating, he attained enlightenment underneath a tree. That tree still exists. It is in the state of Bihar in India, in the town of Gaṅgā, which now is called Buddhaghoṣa, the Gaṅgā of enlightenment after the Buddha. That tree is still right there, my dearly beloved. It is only 2,500 years old, like many trees. There are trees in Canada which are 5,000 years old. There are trees in the UK, in Windsor Park, which are 3,000 years old, 4,000 years old. So, please, my dearly beloved, one day you should visit that tree in Buddhaghoṣa, where he attained enlightenment. And in the course of this Dharmapada teaching, we will go through the noble truths that he realized, the noble truths that release us from suffering, if we actually practice them. But my dearly beloved, so that you are not disappointed, I shall now read out the first verse of the approximately 423 verses of the Dharmapada, 26 chapters, so that you are not disappointed that I only talked about the Buddha's biography and not about his teaching. The Lord Buddha said the following: Mano pubbangama dhamma, mano setha manomaya, manasa che paduttena, bhasati va karoti va, tato nam dukkhamanveti chakkam vavahato padam. Mano pubbangama dhamma, mano setha manomaya, manasa cha pasannena, bhasati va karoti va, tatornam sukham anveti, chaya va anapayini. That all experiences happen in the mind. The mind is their chief. All experiences occur to the mind. Therefore, if someone lives or speaks with a mind full of delusions and confusions, that person will suffer like an animal pulling a cart. That kind of constant suffering will pursue that person like the wheel pursues the animal pulling a cart. Like a buffalo pulling a cart, the wheel of the cart is constantly following the buffalo. Similarly, when your mind is full of selfish confusion, full of obsessive desire, and full of anger, my dearly beloved, suffering will follow you always, the Buddha says. But since all experiences happen only in the mind, since the mind is their chief, since they occur only to the mind, if someone cultivates their mind and achieves peace of mind, then happiness, sukham, will follow that person like his own shadow and will never leave him or her. Tato nam sukham anveti chaya va anapayini. I'm sure some of you can guess the meaning. Then happiness will follow him or her like the shadow, like their own shadow which never departs. Do you understand this teaching? It means you have to look at your own mind, my sweetest beloved friends. You cannot expect the world to make you happy. You can't expect your husband or your wife or your parents or your supposed friends and your bosses and your co-workers to make you happy, or your children. No. Happiness is attained only through peace of mind, by cultivating the clarity of mind. The prasannata, he says, manasa che pasannena. If you live with a prasanna mind, with a happy, peaceful, clear mind, then, my sweetest friends, you will always have happiness no matter what. The Dharmapada is simply an explanation of how to achieve peace of mind, clarity of mind, inner serenity.